Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, U.S. President Barack Obama, and Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto put up a very united front on climate, trade, and security issues during the North American Leaders Summit in Ottawa this week. But Obama also spoke about 2016 U.S. presidential hopeful Donald Trump's divisive politics.
Somebody else who has never shown any regard for workers, has never fought on behalf of social justice issues or making sure that poor kids are getting a decent shot at life or have health care, in fact, have worked against economic opportunity for workers and ordinary people. It's not the measure of populism. That's nativism or xenophobia.
Now, you just heard Obama didn't name Trump specifically, but clearly he was blasting the anti-immigration and protectionist stances held by the Republican presidential hopeful. Mexico's president also said Trump's brand of populism is dangerous. Okay, so for more on the fallout of that, let's turn to our U.S. political panel. Louisa Savage of Politico is in Ottawa today and joins us from there. Hello, Louisa.
Good morning.
And Paul Brandis of West Wing Reports is in our Washington studio. Hello, Paul.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And just because you're so nice, I think I'll give you the first question today. Obama doesn't name Trump specifically, obviously he didn't, but he certainly slammed Trump's politics. What's the fallout of that?
Well, the fallout is that Trump continues to sink in the polls, and on Tuesday, this full blast, full offensive against Trump by the president is really just getting started. On Tuesday, he's going to make his first campaign appearance with Hillary Clinton in North Carolina, which is a very important swing state, by the way, and I think you can expect to see the two of them over the next 4 months crisscross the country with a particular focus on the key swing states that will decide the election. And we're going to hear more of the same. Trump's xenophobia, his populism, his lack of record in terms of doing anything other than for people like himself. I think it's just the beginning of what's going to be a nasty, full-out assault on Trump.
Well, Louisa, I want to talk with you about Trump's comments on trade that he made this week. But first, we've got a clip we want to play for you. Here is what Trump had to say about the U.S. economy in Pennsylvania on Tuesday. Take a listen.
I am going to withdraw the United States from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which has not yet been ratified. I'm going to tell our NAFTA partners that I intend to immediately renegotiate the terms of that agreement to get a better deal by a lot, not just a little, by a lot for our workers.
Now, trade deals like NAFTA, like the TPP, are widely supported by business-minded Republicans. They traditionally like free trade. So how much of a strategic gamble is this for Trump, Louisa?
Well, this is the very heart of his campaign. He's campaigning as someone who is against globalization, against trade, against immigration, and really wants to turn the focus inward in a much more nativist and protectionist way. And this, of course, is absolutely dividing the Republican Party. You had this unprecedented scene of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the most pro-business lobby group, traditionally Republican supporters, tweeting and rebutting each sentence of Trump's speech on trade this week. I mean, this is really dividing the party among pro-globalization and anti-globalization wings. And this is why Trump thinks he can actually go beyond the Republican Party and appeal to the so-called Reagan Democrats, the blue-collar workers in the so-called Rust Belt states of the United States, where manufacturing has seen a decline, where people have lost jobs, and he thinks he can build a very new kind of coalition. The problem is, so far, it's not translating in the polls, and as Paul pointed out, he is down across the country, including in those important battleground states.
Anti-globalization, Paul, is one of the factors, one of the issues in which Trump actually sort of echoes a bit of what Bernie Sanders has to say. Some have suggested that Trump is trying to court some Bernie Sanders supporters. What do you think of that?
Well, good luck with that. I mean, I think there's no question that he's saying a lot of the things that Sanders said, but at the end of the day, and I think we're beginning to see this in the emerging data, is that most Sanders supporters in the end will go to Hillary. I mean, even Sanders himself has said he'll vote for her. He'll do whatever he can to make sure that she wins, whatever he can to make sure that Trump loses. So Trump, I think, has really backed himself into a corner here in terms of who he can really appeal to. And for people who think, by the way, that a lot of these Sanders supporters are never really going to vote for Hillary Clinton. We heard this before back in 2008 when Clinton lost to Obama. A lot of her supporters, Janet, said, well, I could never vote for Barack Obama. But in the end, guess what? That's what most of them did. I think we're going to see a replay of that now.
Well, Louisa, she does still have this whole email scandal dogging her. She was interviewed voluntarily for 3.5 hours by the FBI yesterday about what she did with her emails as she was Secretary of State. Let's take a listen to what she told NBC's Chuck Todd about her interview.
Let me just repeat what I have repeated for many months now. I never received nor sent any material that was marked classified, and there is a process for the review of material before it is released to the public, and there were decisions made that material should be classified. I do call that retroactively classified. So therefore it would not be publicly released. But that doesn't change the facts, as I have explained many times.
So Louisa, she goes in voluntarily, 3.5 hours, has the interview with the FBI, does it on a big holiday weekend, perhaps hoping that we don't notice, that it doesn't make the news that much. But then Bill goes and meets with the Attorney General. What do you make of this whole thing?
Well, that was a huge misstep, both by Bill Clinton and by the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, because now, even if she's cleared, even if the FBI decides not to lay any kind of charges for mishandling classified information on her private email servers, you'll have a whole swath of the public who thinks it was all rigged and that something nefarious went on behind the scenes, that Bill Clinton influenced the Attorney General in some way. So it's almost making it more difficult for her to clear her name, even if the FBI doesn't turn anything up. So it was an unfortunate misstep, I think, by both sides here. And going back to your earlier questions about President Obama on the campaign trail, I think the Clinton campaign aides, what they've said to us at Politico is they have a specific role in mind for him, and that is to go after those voters who, they don't care for Trump. They've heard a lot of negativity about Trump, but they don't quite trust Hillary Clinton, and they're not quite enthusiastic about her either. And his role is going to be to really focus on painting a positive and enthusiastic picture of the former Secretary of State as someone who was once her rival and now has been won over. So that's what I think we're going to start seeing this week from the president.
What do you think of that, Paul? Will it work?
Well, I think it probably will. I mean, the best thing that Obama has going for him and why the Clinton campaign, Janet, is so eager to have him out on the campaign trail is that his poll numbers have actually been rising for quite some time now. He's now at about a 3.5-year high. So they want to take these poll numbers out for a spin and see what kind of mileage they can get. He remains enormously popular with African Americans, obviously, enormously popular with Hispanics, and in a key demographic, he's more popular with younger voters, too, which is one of Clinton's weakness. So those are the folks that he's going to be targeting, in addition, of course, to taking down Trump in all the ways that we've discussed so far. One thing real quickly about Clinton and the emails, by the way, she admits she screwed up. The question from a legal standpoint is, was there criminal wrongdoing? Making a mistake is one thing, committing a crime is another. That's the issue for the FBI as they evaluate all this data. And I think most analysts seem to think that there's a small chance, not a 0% chance, but a small chance that she could be indicted. But most people, I really don't think that's going to happen.
It still gives Republican supporters something to talk about, a reason to sort of throw mud on her. And we're going to be seeing, I think, a lot of mud slinging at the upcoming Republican convention. Right, Louisa? We're only 2 weeks away away from that. We could also see some serious issues with security. Talk to us about what preparations they're making for this big event.
Right. So I've spoken with some law enforcement officials about this, and there's a lot of concern. They're getting a lot of information about a vast number of protest groups on all sides of the political spectrum, the anti-Trump people, the pro-Trump counter-protests. They'll all be descending on the city of Cleveland. And that city has had a hard time finalizing its security plan. They put forward a big security zone where they would keep all the protesters out. The ACLU took this to court, and the court struck it down and said it was contrary to freedom of expression assembly under the First Amendment. So now they've had to make it smaller. This is very late in the game to be figuring out their security processes. So there's a lot of concern. There's also concern by the media who will be out there covering these protests because of all the anti-media, the lying media kind of rhetoric. I've talked to colleagues who are going to be out there photographing and shooting this stuff, and they're afraid of the mobs turning against them. So there's some consternation. And from the Trump campaign's point of view, they want to be telling their own story. They're working on their lineup for the convention. They're supposed to announce their speakers this week. This is their chance to be on the national stage and tell the story that they want to tell. And this could all be very much upended if these protests get out of hand and they become a big distraction to whatever message he's trying to tell.
Whatever happens, I know it's going to be interesting. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's Paul Brandis of The West Wing Reports in Washington and Louisa Savage of Politico in Ottawa this week. You're watching CBC News Network.